The corridors of the Interstellar Academy were always buzzing with noise, metal boots clanging, voices echoing off the sleek walls, and the hum of energy panels lining every surface. Cadets from dozens of worlds moved through the halls, their bodies and minds honed for survival, combat, and strategy. Among them walked Lyra Kane, a human from the Deathworld Xiron 7, her small frame unassuming compared to the towering alien striding alongside her. Her dark eyes flicked over the hall, noting the slightest movement, every shadow, every gesture. She had grown up on a planet that would kill the careless in seconds. To her, this academy was only slightly less dangerous. Most cadets didn't notice her. That was fine. Let them underestimate her. On Xiron 7, you learned that being noticed too soon could get you killed, or worse. She carried herself with quiet confidence, her hands tucked loosely at her sides, her posture relaxed but ready. Every muscle, every nerve, every reflex had been trained to react instantly, because out there on her homeworld, hesitation meant death. Here, in the controlled environment of the academy, she was almost bored, yet alert. Today was combat class. Not a lecture, not drills, but actual hand-to-hand sparring. The instructors had promised an advanced session, one that would test speed, agility, and reflexes. Lyra didn't need to be reminded. She was ready. But as she walked toward the training area, she sensed movement out of the corner of her eye, a ripple in the usual rhythm of the cadets. 4 of the larger students, 3 aliens and 1 human, were watching her with something that felt like amusement and malice. They picked the wrong cadet, she thought. Her footsteps didn't falter. Her heart rate didn't spike. She knew the moment she entered the narrow corridor that they would strike. She had anticipated attacks like this for years. "Hey, little human," one of the aliens sneered, stepping in front of her. He was taller than 3 of her and had a hulking, muscular frame. "Why don't you step aside before we have some fun?" Lyra's gaze met his, calm and unflinching. She didn't respond. Words were unnecessary. She had learned long ago that action spoke far louder than threats. Without warning, the 4 lunged at her simultaneously. Lyra moved like water. She shifted her weight, sidestepping the first attacker, ducking under a second swinging arm, and pivoting to deliver a perfectly aimed strike to the third. Her movements were fluid, precise, and devastatingly fast. She barely made a sound. One cadet slammed into the wall behind him, the impact knocking the wind out of him. Another crumpled to the floor, dazed. The third tried to grab her, but her hand shot out, grabbing his wrist and twisting it in a motion that left him limping. The fourth tried to attack from the side, thinking he could catch her off guard. Lyra reacted without hesitation, sweeping her leg in a smooth arc and sending him sprawling. 12 seconds. 4 cadets incapacitated. 1 human, 2 aliens, 1 staggering but conscious, none able to continue the attack. The hallway fell silent, save for the labored breathing of the 4 unlucky cadets and the faint hum of the energy panels. Lyra straightened, brushing dust from her sleeve as if nothing had happened. Her dark eyes scanned the area, noting the shocked faces of the remaining cadets. None dared approach. She stepped over the nearest fallen attacker and continued toward the training area, her expression unreadable. A few cadets whispered behind her, unable to hide their astonishment. "Did you see that?" one murmured. She took down all of them in 12 seconds. "That's impossible," another replied. "She's human. How can a human move like that?" Lyra didn't hear them. She never did. She had no interest in glory, only survival and mastery of her skills. But in the whispers and wide eyes following her, she could see that her reputation had begun to grow. When she entered the training room, the instructors were already observing her, some with raised eyebrows, others with barely concealed excitement. Combat simulations were nothing new to them, but witnessing raw, instinctive talent, especially from a human, was rare. Cadet Kane, called Instructor Voran, a tall alien with silver skin and sharp eyes. "I see you handled your ambushers. Good reflexes. Excellent application of leverage, very efficient. Lyra gave a small nod, her face calm. It was nothing, she said simply. Vorin chuckled, clearly not believing her. Nothing. Those cadets will be sore for a week. You've made a statement here. Just don't make it a habit to humiliate them. Some will not take kindly to being outclassed. Lyra merely nodded again. She didn't need to explain herself. Humiliation was not her concern. Survival, skill, and readiness were her only priorities. As the day progressed, the incident spread across the academy. Cadets who had once ignored her began to regard her with a mixture of caution and curiosity. Some attempted friendly conversation, others tried subtle intimidation. Lyra observed each interaction, noting motives, reactions, and weaknesses. Nothing escaped her attention. During lunch, she sat alone in the corner of the mess hall. Most humans would have found the solitude lonely, but she did not. Xiron 7 had taught her self-reliance. Survival was always a solitary task in the harsh forests and rocky cliffs of her homeworld. She ate quickly, efficiently, and observed quietly. Alien cadets passed by, some giving her wide berths, others sneaking glances at the human who had so thoroughly bested 4 classmates in seconds. A pair of younger cadets approached her table, hesitant but curious. "Cadet Kane," one said, How did you do it?" "I mean 4 in 12 seconds." Lyra looked up at them, her expression neutral. "Practice, observation, knowing what to expect." The second cadet frowned. "But humans are, you're faster than some of the aliens twice your size. How is that possible?" Lyra shrugged. "Xiron 7 is a hard place to grow up. You either adapt or you die." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Survival on a death world was not something most academy cadets could understand. They were strong, trained, disciplined, but many had never faced a day where the environment itself fought to kill them. Lyra had lived every day like that. By the end of the day, instructors were adjusting their plans. Combat exercises were modified to accommodate her speed and reflexes. Some cadets were assigned to observe her, to learn techniques and strategies that went far beyond normal human capabilities. Some resented it, some were inspired, but all had to admit one thing: Lyra Kane was a force to be reckoned with. Later that evening, Lyra returned to her quarters. The walls were sparse, utilitarian like most cadet rooms, but it was enough. She unpacked her gear, inspected her weapons, and reviewed notes on tactics. She reflected on the day. Ambushed, underestimated, and yet victorious, not through brute strength alone, but through instinct, precision, and relentless training. She had survived countless dangers on Xiron 7. Here, in the academy, she would continue to thrive. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find a fellow cadet, one of the human trainees she had sparred with in earlier sessions. He looked nervous but determined. "Lyra," he said, I want to spar with you. I need to learn how you move. Can you help me?" Lyra studied him for a moment, then nodded. "If you want to learn, I can show you. But remember, speed and skill are useless without focus. Pay attention." Over the next hour, she demonstrated basic techniques, corrected posture, and shared insights about anticipation and reflex. She did not boast, she did not brag. She simply taught. By the end, the cadet was exhausted, sweaty, and awed but grateful. Lyra smiled faintly. Even humans had potential to excel, she thought. Sometimes they just needed guidance. That night, as she lay in her bunk, she thought about the days ahead. The academy would not get easier. Rival cadets would challenge her. Some would try to undermine her, some would attempt to attack again. But she was ready. She had survived Xiron 7. Here no one, not even the deadliest alien warriors, would catch her off guard. In the quiet hum of the space station, Lyra Kane closed her eyes. Tomorrow, the academy would see more of what a human from a death world could do. And they would learn, quickly, that underestimating a Deathworlder was the fastest way to regret it. She slept, calm and prepared, as the stars outside her window gleamed cold and distant. The next morning, the academy buzzed with whispers about Lyra Kane. Even before breakfast, cadets from every training wing had heard of her 12-second victory. Some were curious, some wary, but most were astonished. In the mess hall, small groups paused mid-bite to watch her move quietly through the room. Her calm expression betrayed no hint of pride or arrogance, but the energy around her was electric. Lyra sat at her usual table, quietly eating, her dark eyes scanning the room. She noticed glances, whispers, and subtle movements from those who were clearly sizing her up. She had expected this. Being noticed, being tested, being challenged. This was part of the academy and part of life itself. Her thoughts were interrupted when Instructor Vorin approached, his long silver limbs moving with smooth precision. He stopped at her table, observing her for a moment before speaking. "Cadet Kane, your performance yesterday unusual even for a human. Some cadets are intimidated, some are inspired. The next exercise will push both your skill and your leadership. Are you ready?" Lyra nodded. "I'm ready, sir." Vorin's expression softened slightly. "Good. Today, you will participate in a team-based combat exercise. You will lead a squad composed of cadets from different species. Coordination will be key. Intelligence and speed alone will not be enough." Lyra's mind flicked to the new challenge. Teamwork was different from solo combat, but she had adapted to unpredictability her whole life. She could learn, adapt, and excel. She merely nodded, already calculating strategies and possibilities in her mind. The training field was vast, a simulated Deathworld environment, complete with rocky terrain, unpredictable weather, and scattered ruins to provide cover. It was designed to challenge even the most experienced cadets. Today, she would be leading a team of 6 cadets, including 2 humans, 2 aliens, and 2 hybrids. None had ever fought under her guidance. The exercise began with a sudden alarm. Holographic enemy drones materialized across the field, moving rapidly and attacking with precision. The squad hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to respond. Lyra took a deep breath, stepping forward. "Focus," she said calmly. "Cover each other. Use the terrain. Predict, don't react. Move." The cadets glanced at her uncertainly but obeyed. Lyra darted forward, her small frame weaving between rocks and debris, striking quickly at the drone's weak points. Each movement was precise, efficient, and effective. Within seconds, she had neutralized 2 drones while directing her squad to cover the remaining ones. One of the alien cadets, a tall, reptilian creature named Krith, tried to act independently, charging recklessly at a drone. Lyra's voice snapped sharply. "Krith, flank." Not straight on. Krith skidded to a stop, eyes wide with surprise. Following her instruction, he repositioned and successfully assisted in disabling the remaining drone. The team started to synchronize, moving in ways they hadn't before. Lyra's commands were simple, clear, and unhesitating, leaving no room for confusion. As the exercise continued, the simulated environment grew harsher. A sudden simulated storm swept across the field, reducing visibility and making footing treacherous. Other squads struggled, some falling behind or losing control. Lyra's squad adapted. She guided them calmly, finding paths, using cover, and exploiting weaknesses in the drone attack patterns. By the end of the exercise, her team had neutralized all drones with minimal damage to themselves, finishing faster and more efficiently than any other squad. Instructor Vorin observed quietly, nodding in approval. "Remarkable," he murmured. "She doesn't just fight. She teaches, leads, and adapts under pressure. This is rare." The squad gathered afterward, sweaty, exhausted, and astonished. Even Krith, who had been overconfident at the start, bowed his head in respect. "Cadet Kane," he said gruffly, "I underestimated you. Your timing, your guidance, you were incredible." Lyra nodded. "We worked as a team. You followed instructions. That's what made it work." The day's lessons didn't end there. Cadets attempted challenges and rivalries throughout the academy. some deliberately trying to provoke Lyra to test whether the whispers were true. Each time, Lyra remained calm, alert, and precise. She did not seek conflict, but she did not shy away from it either. Her victories were efficient, leaving no room for doubt. By mid-afternoon, the Academy's hierarchy had subtly shifted. Cadets who had once mocked or ignored her now regarded her cautiously. Some sought to learn from her, some to challenge her, but all understood that underestimating her would be disastrous. Lyra noticed this but ignored it. Attention and reputation were irrelevant to her. Only skill, survival, and adaptability mattered. During a quiet break between sessions, a human cadet named Jalen approached her. He was younger, smaller, and less confident, but his eyes were bright with curiosity. "Lyra, I want to learn from you," he said earnestly. How do you move so fast, think so clearly? Can you train me?" Lyra studied him silently for a moment. Training others was not her priority, but teaching was a way to strengthen oneself as well. "Speed is useless without focus," she said. "Observation is useless without understanding. You must train your mind and body together. If you want, I can help you, but you will have to push harder than anyone else." Jalen nodded eagerly, and she spent the next hour guiding him through exercises, correcting posture, teaching how to anticipate attacks, and how to read opponents' intentions. By the end, he was exhausted but improved, more confident in his abilities. Lyra smiled faintly, a rare expression. Humans had potential, she thought. They just needed discipline and guidance. Meanwhile, other cadets had not forgotten yesterday's corridor fight. A group of 4 tried to intimidate her during another combat drill. They moved as one, attempting to corner her again. But Lyra had already anticipated the tactic. She stepped lightly to the side, twisting and using their momentum against them. Within moments, they were disarmed or incapacitated, but she ensured none were seriously hurt. 12 seconds again. But this time, it was controlled, precise, and tactical rather than reactive. By evening, word of her abilities had reached even the Academy's top instructors. Meetings were held to discuss her potential. Some debated whether she should be placed in specialized training programs, while others argued that her instincts and adaptability could not be taught. They could only be observed and utilized. Lyra herself was unaware of most of these discussions, focused instead on perfecting her own skills and observing the behavior of her peers. As night fell, the Academy quieted. Lyra returned to her quarters carrying only the essentials, her training gear, a few personal belongings, and her mental focus. She reflected on the day. She had led a team, neutralized threats, and trained a fellow human. She had proven that skill, intelligence, and discipline could overcome raw strength and numbers. The Academy was changing its view of humans, not as fragile beings, but as capable, adaptable, and resilient. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. She opened the door to find another cadet, a hybrid alien-human named Sira. Sira's eyes were wide, nervous, but filled with determination. "Lyra," she said, I want to join your practice sessions. I want to learn. Will you help me?" Lyra studied her silently. Teaching again was not a priority, but guiding others was part of her experience. On Xiron 7, she had often taught others to survive. "You must be ready to push yourself," she said. "I will help you, but you will have to earn every lesson." Sira nodded eagerly. "I will. I promise." For the rest of the night, Lyra demonstrated drills, corrected mistakes, and explained strategies. She taught not just moves, but awareness, anticipation, and control. Slowly, Sira's skills improved. By the end, she was tired but smiling, understanding a little more of what made Lyra so exceptional. As Lyra prepared for sleep, she glanced out the window at the stars beyond the station. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, challenges, and unknowns, but she was ready. Survival, adaptability, and skill were her greatest weapons. She had proven herself in 12 seconds, and she would continue to prove that humans, especially Deathworlders, could compete, lead, and excel anywhere. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, rivalries, and tests. Lyra welcomed them all. She had grown up where the environment itself fought to kill her. Here, among cadets from dozens of worlds, she was more than ready. The Academy, the galaxy, and even the most arrogant cadets would soon learn that underestimating a Deathworlder was a grave mistake. And as she lay down, muscles aching but mind alert, she knew this was only the beginning. The day of the Academy-wide simulation had arrived, and the entire cadet corps was gathered in the central training sector. Holographic projections flickered across the walls, displaying a sprawling battlefield filled with unpredictable terrain, hostile drones, and environmental hazards designed to challenge even the most experienced cadets. Instructors and observers watched from elevated platforms, their expressions serious. This was not a routine exercise. It was the ultimate test of skill, strategy, and adaptability. Lyra Kane stood at the edge of the training field, her dark eyes scanning every detail. Her team, the same squad she had led successfully yesterday, waited beside her, tense but determined. They had trained under her guidance, and now it was time to put everything into practice. She could see the nervousness in their faces, but also the trust. They knew she would lead them safely if they followed her instructions. The simulation began with a sudden alarm. Drones swarmed the battlefield, some attacking directly, others using stealth and diversion tactics. The terrain shifted as well. Simulated lava flows, falling debris, and bursts of energy challenged their movement and strategy. Cadets screamed orders and shouted warnings, but Lyra remained calm, her mind processing everything at incredible speed. "Stay close. Use the cover. Watch each other," she called out to her squad. "Predict, don't react. Move." Her small frame darted forward, weaving through obstacles, striking drones with pinpoint accuracy. She coordinated her squad with simple, precise commands. When one of her cadets hesitated, she stepped in instantly, redirecting them to a safer position. Her leadership was quiet but firm, her instincts flawless. Other squads were struggling. Some panicked, falling into traps or getting trapped in environmental hazards. Lyra's squad moved almost like a single organism, anticipating threats and neutralizing them efficiently. Every move, every strike was calculated. Within minutes, they had cleared a section of the battlefield that had confounded more experienced cadets. A particularly large drone burst through a wall of holographic debris, charging at Lyra's team with a speed that even she had to respect. Lyra's reaction was instantaneous. She leapt to the side, grabbing one cadet and pulling them out of the path, then turned, using a combination of a kick and a throw to disable the drone without allowing it to cause harm. Her squad followed her example, coordinating their moves and clearing remaining threats with precision. The observers were astonished. Even instructors who had seen countless cadets excel were whispering among themselves. "That human, she's controlling the field," one muttered. "She's not just fighting, she's thinking 10 steps ahead." Lyra continued, guiding her team through increasingly dangerous terrain. Simulated lava flows blocked paths, forcing them to find alternative routes. Energy barriers shifted without warning, testing their reflexes and adaptability. She anticipated every challenge, adjusting strategies on the fly and keeping her squad coordinated. At one point, a rival squad attempted to flank them, thinking they could catch Lyra off guard. But she had predicted the move. She signaled her team silently, repositioning them behind cover. When the rival squad moved into the trap, they were met with coordinated resistance, forcing them to retreat. Lyra's understanding of strategy and her ability to anticipate enemy actions had given her squad a significant advantage. During a pause in the simulation, instructors called for a check-in. Cadets took a brief breath, inspecting their equipment and analyzing the battlefield. Lyra didn't rest. She observed patterns in the drone's movements, noted weaknesses in the terrain, and refined her squad's positioning. Her focus was unyielding. "Remember," she said softly to her team, "this is about coordination. Speed and strength help, but survival comes from awareness and adaptability. Stay alert, stay together, and we'll finish this." The simulation resumed with renewed intensity. A massive holographic storm swept across the field, reducing visibility to almost nothing. Debris rained down from above, threatening to knock cadets off balance. Many squads were caught off guard, their movements chaotic. Lyra's team, however, moved with uncanny precision. They used hand signals, sound cues, and instinctive understanding to navigate the storm. Every step was deliberate, every action calculated. A particularly dangerous moment came when a section of the field collapsed, sending cadets tumbling into a simulated chasm. Lyra acted instantly, using her small size and agility to leap across unstable platforms, helping her teammates find secure footing. She grabbed one cadet by the arm, swinging them up just before the ground beneath them crumbled. The squad began to trust her implicitly, moving as she moved, thinking as she thought. Minutes later, the simulation reached its climax. The final wave of drones was faster, smarter, and more aggressive than anything they had faced before. They attacked relentlessly, targeting any weakness. Lyra analyzed their patterns quickly, identifying vulnerabilities and issuing commands in rapid succession. Her team responded flawlessly, neutralizing threats with speed and efficiency. By the end of the exercise, Lyra's squad had completed the simulation flawlessly, finishing faster and with fewer injuries than any other team in the Academy's history. The observers erupted into applause, some even standing to acknowledge the achievement. Instructor Voron's eyes were wide with admiration. "Remarkable," he said. "Cadet Kane has not only survived but excelled in every aspect. She has demonstrated leadership, strategy, skill, and adaptability beyond expectations." Lyra's team gathered around her, exhausted but exhilarated. They had faced overwhelming odds, navigated dangerous terrain, and survived. They looked at her with awe and respect. Even Krith, who had been overconfident when they first met, bowed his head. "You led us perfectly," he said. "I never thought humans could this. You're incredible." Lyra nodded quietly. "We succeeded because we stayed aware, focused, and together. That's what matters." Word of their achievement spread quickly throughout the Academy. Cadets from other squads approached Lyra, asking questions, seeking advice, and trying to understand her methods. Some were intimidated, some inspired, but all recognized her skill. Even rival cadets who had attempted to provoke her now approached cautiously, aware that underestimating a Deathworlder was a serious mistake. The instructors held a formal debrief, praising her performance and highlighting the lessons for all cadets. Lyra listened quietly, absorbing feedback but never seeking attention. She understood that true skill wasn't measured by accolades or recognition. It was measured by survival, by adaptability, and by the ability to lead others through chaos. As night fell over the Academy, Lyra returned to her quarters. Her body ached, but her mind was sharp. She unpacked her gear, cleaned her weapons, and reviewed notes on tactics and strategy. She thought about the day's events, how her instincts, training, and experience from Xiron 7 had given her an edge. She reflected on the importance of observation, anticipation, and leadership. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Jalen and Sira, both eager to train even at this late hour. "We want to keep practicing," Jalen said, eyes wide with determination. Lyra studied them silently for a moment, then nodded. "You will have to push harder than anyone else," she said. "But if you are willing, I will guide you." For the next hour she ran drills, corrected mistakes, and taught strategies. She emphasized awareness, coordination, and adaptability. By the end, both cadets were exhausted but improved, understanding more of what made Lyra exceptional. She smiled faintly, a rare expression, satisfied that others were learning to adapt and survive. As she finally lay down to rest, Lyra gazed out the window at the stars beyond the station. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, challenges, and unknowns. She knew that her journey was only beginning. The Academy had tested her, proven her abilities, and recognized her skill. But beyond these walls lay even greater challenges, unknown worlds, deadly adversaries, and situations that would demand everything she had learned. She closed her eyes, muscles aching but mind alert. Survival, skill, and adaptability were her greatest weapons. Humanity, she realized, had the potential to thrive anywhere, on Deathworlds, in space, and among alien civilizations. She had proven it in 12 seconds, again in team exercises, and now across the entire Academy. And as she drifted into sleep, she knew one thing for certain. No matter what challenges the galaxy held, Lyra Kane, the Deathworlder, would face them, adapt, and excel. Underestimating a human from Xiron 7 was a mistake few would ever make twice. The stars outside her window gleamed cold and distant, but she felt ready. The galaxy was hers to navigate, conquer, and survive. And she would do so not through sheer strength alone, but through skill, intelligence, and the indomitable spirit of humanity.